Thank you for joining us for the 2-minute drills. I'm Aram Tolegian, joined on my left by Steve Ramirez. I guess we should say in the middle, Steve Ramirez, as he usually is, to be a buffer between me and Fred on the far outside.
Tiger Woods.
Right, exactly. We're talking about two big games going down in the Tribune area on Friday night. The first of which we'll talk about is Bishop Amat. They are hosting Chaminade in yet another key Mission League game. And then in a few minutes we'll talk about Los Altos going to Charter Oak in the renewal of one of the Valley's most storied rivalries. But we can kick off by talking about Amat, 4-3 overall, 2-1 in the Mission League, hosting Chaminade, 5-2 overall, 1-2 in the Mission League. And Fred, you never want to, take anything for granted in this league. You never want to, say this means this as far as league title, this means that as far as playoffs. But I think it's pretty safe to say if Amat wins this game, not only are they really in the driver's seat for the league title, but they are also looking very good as far as just making the playoffs.
Yeah, well, they have a lot of things favoring them. One, that they have the bye week next week, and they'll have a bye week going into their final two games, and one of those are against Loyola at home, who's looking right now like they could be the bottom team in this league. And then they'll finish with Notre Dame, who will be a pretty tough game on the road. Right. But obviously, Chaminade on Friday, this Friday coming up, that's a team that's pretty dangerous. Steve saw them a lot last year when they used to go against St. Francis and Sarah when they were all in that Mission League together. Steve could probably tell you a lot about them. They look like an explosive team who can score a lot of points, but they've had some trouble the last 2 weeks. They've lost their last two games in the Sarah as they try to adjust to the Pac-5. And I just think Amat, right now what's important is they've got their confidence going, Steve. Yeah. They beat Sarah 2 weeks ago, then they go into Alamany, they beat an undefeated team who's a top 20 ranked team in the country, top 5 team ranked in the state. And Amat this week, they moved up to number 8 in the Pac-5 ranking, so I don't know, this is a spot where they look, they have a lot of confidence, but it's also a spot they've gotten to this point before in years past, and sometimes this is where the hiccups are, so they've got to be careful.
Yeah, but it seems like they figured out what their identity is, and they're kind of running with that, and
emphasis on running.
Yeah. But to take apart Alamany, the way they took them apart, it wasn't just a win.
Yeah.
They dominated that game. If you look at the way
and Alamany's a team that destroyed Chaminade earlier in the year. That was one of those games that they lost. You're right. Amat, it seems like they've got Toriano Sweet, he's running the ball now. Damien Garcia, he's passing just enough. And their defense has been absolutely nails. When you look at what they've done to Sarah and Alamany, Aram, back to back, that's pretty good defensive showings against teams that score a lot of points and that are athletic.
Those are the three things right there that I think have, four if you include my column. Those are the three things as far as on the field that have turned around the season right there. The emergence of Sweet at running back, Damien Garcia getting better and better as a QB, and then the defense, Freddie, stepping up its game as well. You put those three things together, we knew this was a very talented team, as talented as any in that league. And, here they are. They're on the verge of something special. And right now, the way they're playing, it's hard to kind of bet against them. The thing about Chaminade, the thing about Sarah that I wanted to take a look at, as far as this league, went on this year was last year, Stevie, as we know, Sarah and Chaminade were in what was it called? This was the Mission League last year for them, right? With St. Francis and all that.
Western Division, is that the division they went in?
Right. Yeah. But more specifically, the league. And what I'm talking about here is now that these teams have been put up into a league where for them they're playing teams that would have been upper division teams every week in the league, I want to see if they wear out. Yeah, because last year, they played.
That's the difference. That's a good point, because that's the difference. Because they get into those other leagues where there's 3 or 4 games where
you're
absolutely going to win.
Right.
You could look at that. That's one of the big arguments. That's a good point that I brought up. When you're a Bishop Amat and you play these teams every single week, including the preseason, anyone can get up for 1 or 2 games a year. Right. And that's what they had to do in the Mission. They had to get up for St. Francis, and they had to get up for Sarah.
Right.
When they played each other. Those other games were gimmies.
Right.
Yeah,
and there's no gimmies in this league, and you've got to every
week. They were much better than Harvard Westlake, and obviously St. Paul And sometimes St. Francis would have a great year, like last year, every 3 years. So they were better than St. Francis. So the only game they really had to get up for was when they played each other. And and it's like you said, when you have to bring that every week, eventually that kind of wears on you if you're not used to it.
Right.
Teams like Amat have been doing this for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
At least the different coaching staffs, and they know how to coach at that level.
It may take its toll. I look at this. There's really only one comparative score that you can give, and that's Alamany. And like Fred said, Chaminade kind of got worked by Alamany, or at least the scoreboard looks like that. I mean, we weren't there, but I think it was 55-38. And then Amat obviously whipped on Alamany. Now I don't know if this is just what happens in this league, where one week one team jumps all over another, and the next week that team jumps on a team that the team that jumped on them couldn't handle. I don't know, but I think, like I said, with Amat playing the way they are, you just don't stand in front of this train.
The one thing I've learned is some of these games have the ability, they always do, to be really close. Chaminade can obviously play with Bishop Amat. It wouldn't be a gigantic upset if they beat them. It comes down to a lot of times, sometimes there's blowouts in these leagues because teams are just better. But when you get in close games, it's those little mistakes that you make. I go back to Crespi. That was a game Amat had a chance to put away. They throw an interception. They come down. Amat, the 2-point conversion at the end. Crespi wins it. Those little things like that. And Bishop Amat, the one thing I'll say, and the games I've not had, or the games I've watched on TV or watched in person, they've made a lot of mistakes in the red zone that they've got to clean up. That will come back to bite them if they're not careful. If they get on top of a team like Chaminade, you've got to put them away. You can't keep fumbling at the one. You can't keep throwing interceptions, in the end zone. They've done that a few times this year. They did it against Alamany last week, but they were winning that game so handily, it didn't matter. They've got to be careful. Every team says you got to avoid mistakes, but I think at this level, it's even more important.
Okay, well, I've said it twice now. I like Amat in this game. You guys, I think you're going to be in agreement.
Yeah. I like Amat by, if I was setting a line, I'd set it at 10 points. I like him by a touchdown and a field goal.
Stevie?
Yeah, I like Amat in this game. I would say maybe 10 to 14. Chaminade can always step up, but the way Amat's playing, and they always bring it, so I would say 10 to 14 points.
The only question left is, will they wear the gold uniforms on Friday?
I don't think they need them. But I mean, I guess you don't want to break a streak. Yeah, I know everyone does these things where they don't shave until something bad happens, but I
don't take out the gold uniforms until you lose.
Yeah, I heard you just break them back out if you make the playoffs. Okay, so there you have it. We're all three in agreement that Amat beats Chaminade in another big Mission League game. Now moving on, this is a rivalry of all rivalries, really. For a while at least, in the San Gabriel Valley. Some pieces are missing. It's not the greatest setup that it's had, in years past. But still, it's Los Altos going to Charter Oak. This is one of the creations that the Hacienda League gave us. Charter Oak 3-3, 1-0 in the Hacienda League. Los Altos 2-4, 0-1 in the Hacienda League. And Fred, not only does Los Altos need to win this because it's a big rivalry, they need to win this because their season's history if they don't. There's pretty much no way else to put it.
Yeah, losing the game they did last week. You lose the Charter. You start 0-2 in this league with the number of teams that are competitive in it. They're not making the playoffs.
Right.
Their overall record's not going to get them in because they lost a lot of close games in the non-league that now will probably come back to bite them. And look, I was reading some of the blogs this week. Some people are calling Los Altos the most overrated team in the San Gabriel Valley. So they've got to answer some of these critics. And Charter Oak, look, they're vulnerable. They're not the Charter Oak that we used to remember. They're beatable. Cam Brown has been really good. I think he's the leading passer in the Valley right now. They could still throw it around the park, but you can score points on Charter Oak more than you ever have.
Especially in the second half.
Yeah, so I don't know. Charter Oak's a favorite, but they're not. It's not what it used to be, where you think you're just going to go in and just roll teams.
Stevie, We talk about the rivalry. I mean, you saw a lot of those games, late 90s, early 2000s. I saw some of them in the mid 2000s, and obviously this was a period where Los Altos was winning CIF titles.
Yeah,
like
that was
they were.
for our good games.
Right.
Those were great
Yeah.
games.
Right, and when Los Altos wasn't winning CIF titles, Charter Oak was. But there's no Gano here.
No.
It's just Farrar, and the teams aren't to the level that they were back then, but still pretty interesting to see the LA and the CO back on the field.
I mean, I'd say from about 97 to about 2006 or 7, this was probably the best rival game in the San Gabriel Valley. I mean, because they met during the league season. Back then it was the Miramonte League, and then they met in the championship of I think it was Division 7 back then. So it was two of the top 3 teams in the area.
And the coaching aspect. When you had Gano going against Farrar, it was so funny. Like they'd say the nicest things about each other, but if they had a chance to really run up a score on the other one, they would do it.
Yeah.
And then you'd ask them, well, if you like him so much, why are you running up the he'd have done it to me.
Well, Look at
I remember my first assignment as prep editor in 2000. I decided on the first day you could practice to go out to the schools.
Yeah.
And I went out to Los Altos, and I introduced myself to Coach Gano. And before I even asked him a question, he said, "Have you spoken to Lou yet?"
Yeah.
Because he wanted to know what Charter Oak was doing.
Right.
So
awesome, man. And 2 great guys. But obviously, this is different now. This is Dale Ziola's program, and he's done a great job with it. Freddie, they've got to win this game. They've had their moments where they almost beat Monrovia.
I think a lot of this for them now is mental. I mean, it's hard when you're high school kids. Because look, I saw them go against Glendora, and I saw them play a very competitive game that if not for a few mistakes, they had a really good chance to win.
Right.
I mean, I compared that to what I saw Glendora doing at Bonita last week.
And then they lose last second to Monrovia.
They lose last second to Monrovia.
Lose last second to San Dimas.
Last second. I mean, they have it in them. But sometimes when you start losing, it starts to add up in your head.
Right.
And I think that game at Chino last week, maybe this has done something, losing those close games. I think this is their CIF championship. Yeah. They've got to show up on Friday and say, look, this is it. There's no looking ahead. There's no looking back. We've got Charter Oak right in front of us. This is a game we absolutely have to win. We know we're capable. We know what we did at Monrovia. We know what we did with Glendora. We know that Charter Oak also lost at Glendora, probably in a similar way. They've got to go there and find a way to win one of these big games. They haven't done it all year. This is the time. If you don't do it now, then the season really is over.
Right, and here's the good news for Los Altos. The one thing Charter Oak doesn't have, Los Altos does have, and that's size and strength along both the offensive and defensive line. One thing Charter Oak does have, though, is an outstanding group of skill players. When you talk about, Brown at quarterback and Zion Eccles at running back and Nash at receiver and Castile at receiver, they've got probably the best set of skill guys this side of Monrovia, and they're probably very comparable in the Central Division. I think that's enough. I think Charter Oak's speed, they'll be good enough at the line to, they may have their moments where they struggle with Los Altos at the line, but they're too explosive, they're too dynamic. Points are easier for Charter Oak to score than they are for Los Altos to score. And unless this game follows that perfect script that Los Altos needs a lot of their games to follow, which they kind of had at Monrovia, and still came up a little bit short, unless it follows that kind of script, I think this gets away from them. I think Big Lou wants to send a message to Los Altos. He doesn't care who's coaching there now. He might just want to do it because Gano once coached there. And so I think Big Lou brings the violin case, and this one gets away. I really do. Because it could be a pack-it-in moment for Los Altos.
I don't think it gets away. I think they're going to give them a game. I think after what happened with Chino, they're going to show up, and this is going to be their leave everything on the table game. But I still think, at the end of the day, I think Charter Oak beats them.
But if Charter Oak is up 14, 17 points, and you're a Los Altos player, and you know in your heart of hearts that you just don't have the kind of explosiveness
to get you back in a game
to catch up, do you start to kind of, think about who we're going to homecoming with, or wonder what Coach
like I
Wickes
said,
has for basketball team?
It's hard if you lose this game to play the remainder of the season, because you feel like it would take a miracle at that point. You have to win out basically,
right,
to get in, and even then that you may not get in.